Saving Our History by Saving Your Games. This is a presentation by myself, Noah Bacon. I am a video game archivist or a video game preservationist, depending on what your mood is that day. So, from the U.S., very into the subject. So I wanted to kind of give you a breadth of understanding in regard to some basic elements of what goes into video game preservation. Because when people think of it, they think of just collecting games. That is not true. We have collectors, but preservation goes a step further in preserving these games in digital formats and in every way conceivable. So I'm going to go over what that actually means and give you more insight into what happens when a game is preserved, and ultimately what you can do to make sure your voice is heard and you're part of the discussion in regards to video game history. So I shall start my introduction. Who is this video game preservationist? I am Mr. Noah Bacon, as I noted before. I am a staff member and admin of GamingAlexandria.com. We are a video game history site that creates articles, releases, preserves, scans, and high-quality, reproducible quality video game assets, so they're not lost. We do a lot of niche things, a lot of obscure things. You'll see some of that going forward. I'm also an admin and project manager at the Video Game Preservation Collective, PRESERVATIONIST.org, though we don't update the website very often. It's more of a shake and bake operation. It's a community of around 800 individuals, and they kind of monitor themselves. But we're admins, and I take part in projects, R&D, and I'll get into that a little later. I'm also executive director of a not yet launched video game preservation nonprofit. We're stabilizing ourselves and figuring out how to push through the way the world is right now to create what is essentially an umbrella organization for other groups that we can support. Anyway, and as you see, I have the one picture I have, which is me in my kendo outfit. You now have blackmail material on me, so use it wisely. I don't have very much money. So, what is video game preservation? Well, it's preserving video games, dummy. Duh. Well, maybe it's actually a number of things, that I'll, go over in some detail for you. The first is, preservation is funneling passion and motivation, not just for yourself, but for other people. Everyone's a potential volunteer, and if they're, in our Discord chat, if they're participating in the forums, they probably feel very strongly about this. So, there are people I want to engage with, and I do engage with, and ask them, a simple question is, how do you want to help? And I've had many takers. That's how we have our current team. Who is funneling their passion into video game preservation? Well, we have individuals who are there, buy games, catalog them, preserve them by digitizing assets and whatnot. But that counts for a large portion. I wanted to also explore things you wouldn't have heard of, such as groups from other countries where there is a huge presence in video game preservation. So did you know there are 12 French video game preservation groups? I am casual acquaintances with 2 of them, I've made friends. I've talked to them. I use Google Translate to make horrible jokes in French, and they're good people and they're very passionate. There's at least 15 of these as well in the U.S. There's Gaming Alexandria, Video Game History Foundation. I'm sure you've heard of them. There is the National Video Game Museum. There is the Strong Museum of Play. There is, Video Game Preservation Collective, Gaming Alexandria, Forest of Illusion. There's a lot. There's even 2 in Brazil. I work closely with one of them. Great guy, led by Gus Larsman, I believe. And, they're focused on this task as well. They're trying to preserve not just video games, but their country's history and culture that otherwise wouldn't be known outside of there, much less for future generations. And there is more the world over. So let me give you a spattering of you know, there's quite a few. These are the logos I have on file because I have a bunch on my back of my laptop. So, you know, there's the two French ones, mo5.com. There's La Fonquis, I cannot pronounce French. Video Game Scanning Collective, which is an offshoot of the VGPC. There's Force of Illusion. The GPS is in the bottom left corner. They are a Japanese group who do some phenomenal work and they have absolutely zero. They go for the best. You know, they really do care about things, and they go the extra mile to do the insane stuff. You know, what's the best way to preserve this? Okay, that's the way we can do it. What is the actual best way? That's a question. Joseph Radon at uh, uh, the GPS, the Game Preservation Society, really gets into and cares much about. So, you know, so what else is it? It's reaching out to everyone. Like I just said, you know, the important thing here is that we ask questions, we involve people, and you know, maybe it gets a little awkward, or maybe they say no, but you don't know until you ask, and that's how you build a community. That's how you discover what resources you actually have, you know, what people are willing to do to help you. So what I do is reach out to everyone who shows any interest or has a passing fascination. You know, at worst, I'm human for someone for 5 minutes and have a good talk. That's what that's where most of my, actually, that's where the bulk of my time goes. So obviously video game preservation, you think about, oh, they're digitizing games or scanning in, they're ripping games, you know, like they're taking the ROMs. And this is kind of what it covers. So, you know, I can get into the ripping part of it, the video games themselves. You know, we don't distribute anything, you know, we do everything as legal as we can. But I want to get into the less talked about section, which is scanning in physical objects. So scanning, we have two methods. We have the automatic disk feeder, or automatic direct feed scanner, which, you know, you put it on like a feed, like a tray, and then it goes through and scans in things automatically. And there's some issues with that, but we use it for manuals and magazines, because it's, you know, it takes what would be a 300-page magazine for some of these Japanese publications, and just kind of does it automatically. Otherwise, it would take, you know, tens, if not like 100 hours or so, like 4 minutes per page. So, any case, so scanning, we're going to focus on flatbed scanning. So, flatbed scanning, you use a flatbed scanner. There are some that are better. Our baseline is the Epson V550. Good price, balance in quality and price, obviously. So, but here we have the design, the Bandai Design Master. We digitized the box, the system, and the PCB at 1600 DPI, 48-bit color depth, and preservation quality, which means we have color swatches on the scan for the raw TIFF files. That lets us reproduce these things at a future date by being able to color correct. We also have color-corrected profiles where you can calibrate your scanner so the color, it accounts for color differences between machines. It's called an ICC profile. We also have those. We also don't do any post-processing, as we want to make it preservation level. We want people to be looking at these things in 20, 30, 50, 100, 150 years. So anyway, yeah, we have the PCB, which we scan all the time. We have the system itself and the box. And heads up, before we touch this, nothing was online about this. Maybe a handful of pictures, 2 articles, but the Bandai Design Master, it's, you know, pre-WonderSwan, it's was completely forgotten, even by preservation groups in Japan. So let's get to the bulk of things you actually care about, like video games, right? So we have a Famicom cart and box. On the left side, we have a Design Master cartridge. Story behind this one is a Shonen Jump special of a contest cartridge. Only 300 or 500 were released, and you had to win, you obtained them by winning the contest. So very rare. We had someone loan us theirs for digitizing it, and also the PCB up here. So, you know, reference is almost complete in many ways. We also have CDI, a CDI game, Tangram, which is an Italian one. We we digitize everything. We want to represent the history of video games as complete as possible. So that means we need examples from each era, from each system. And I also have a NET's Super CD-ROM game there, which is adult in nature, but it was the one that came up. So I'm not going to show you the box art, but it's pretty cool stuff. So, let's get into the kind of nitty-gritty background that you don't hear about when you talk about video game preservation with any random person, or you think, hey, cool, we should save this stuff. There's a lot of like back-end technology, back-end development, coordination that goes on. I want to get into the process and technology R&D side of that. So a couple examples of volunteers just kind of doing this, actual development of technology into a real product. This is the Domesday 86. It was developed by Simon Inns in Sweden to capture laser discs at a very low level. So you create a CD image, like a .iso, .bin, we all back up our games, right? This creates the same thing for laser discs, except it does it at an even more minute level. So it's reading the raw read that the Laserdisc reads before it translates it into video, which is an RF image. Yes, it's a radio frequency. It's analog. Laserdisc has a digital track, but the video is all analog. So he created this, years of development, affordable price, and I just did a run of these with someone else to produce them for like 20-30 people. So it is, this was homegrown grassroots project. We also have an example of an unreleased one, unreleased project. This is a modular cartridge ripper for the Raspberry Pi Zero. So you see we have a Raspberry Pi, we have the MCU I/O board, which is like a controller board, and then you have the cartridge slot, which feeds in the MCU. This was designed to make ripping cartridges for your personal collection affordable. A lot of the solutions out there are hard to find, expensive. Retroid 2 is like $80 plus 30 to 50 for the adapters that you could plug different games like Genesis, or one for Genesis or Game Gear. And there's ones like the Analog NT, which is a giant FPGA, like programmable CPU, very specialized, $500. This will cost in low teens, low 2 digits. So our technology R&D is trying to solve a problem, and we're taking it into our own hands because no one else is. And so that's technology. This is an example of process research. So you digitize something, you scan it with a flatbed scanner, but how, out of all the little nitty-gritty things you can configure, how do you get the best scan out of it? The highest image quality. And we're working on a scanning guide as well as a ripping guide that tells you this, because everyone's recreating this. There's been I don't know how many efforts, at least 5 or 6 that I've heard of, to scan things improperly at different resolutions, different settings. We want to create the kind of the authoritative work on this, so we can move on to other projects as opposed to reinventing the wheel. So yeah, no, check it out, dev.scanning.guide. Get involved. It's it's pretty cool stuff, if I may say so. So what else? Research and giving context to history. This is important. You think of like video game ROMs like Zelda or whatnot that you can play on your computer, but you just download the files, right? You just download the .NES file or whatever, and you don't really know anything about the game except what's presented to you. So like National Geographic does this, Smithsonian does this, try to give you a rounded understanding of the history and significance of what you're playing or what you're reading. And GamingAlexandria.com does this. We do it. We've done it for many pieces. I think there's over 1,000 articles right now, including scans. So let me give you some examples. So Game Urara is a magazine from 90s Japan, pirated. It's a pirate, so it was very unofficial. Well, actually, it had a real publisher. It's a complicated history. It's the dirtiest, weirdest. They had like a shock and gore section. They had reviews of video games. They had like pirate tools. It's a slice of the culture. And if you just read the magazines, if you even read Japanese, you still wouldn't get the understanding of what it is and why it's important. We have an article in Alexandria.com which goes into all this and breaks it down to tell you why you should care. We did the same thing for a magazine called Game Criticism, which was a magazine in Japan that they consider themselves pure, at least for the first 30 or 40 issues. They didn't accept advertising from video game companies. They had a lot of cool sections. They had like the artist for Metal Gear drew like Nicolas Cage in one of the sections. There was Kojima at the Cinema, where he reviewed classic movies that really impacted him. So this was, the literary equivalent for video games. We don't give the context behind it. We give you issues you can look at. We try to give the full package. So that's a bit of a overview of some of the aspects. We get into more exotic things. I'm seeing about 3D scanning, not 3D printing, 3D scanning, as well as weird stuff like how to do that, and laser finding for these LiDAR for environments. I can't think of much else right now, but there is a lot of weird, strange things that, when you get down to it, we're trying to preserve things as best as possible, and that means we have to really think outside, the box or whatever. So we expand ourselves and we research, and then we follow the paths. But ultimately, what does it come down to in regards to video game preservation? At the end of the day, what matters most, and where and what has the most ability to save these things and keep them relevant? Well, the answer is going to surprise you. It's you. It is you, the students, you, the video game developers, especially, people who, and, founders of indie companies who create the assets, put in, have these cultural movements of our time through your product. You put in hundreds of hours, tens of thousands, into a passion, into something which becomes a significant part of our world and a reflection of that. So let me say a rather long quote from Jason Scott. At the Indie Showcase of MacFest, there was a room full of Danny Barry, Steve Maritsky, Roberta Williams, and Will Wrights downstairs. There are kids here who, in 10 years, will be lining at MacFest and PAX for a chance to talk to them for a minute or two. But there will be many who will disappear, and there will be a struggle to find a record of them. These studios are all making huge banners and generating promotional art and design documents, and they may keep them, but maybe won't. Why not start reaching out to them, even a handful, and say, "Hi, real institution here. We want to give you 100% free lifetime storage if you agree to send us all your boxes of stuff on a regular basis and do an occasional interview about it." Who won't leap at that? But reach out to these nascent creators and future celebrities and beloved figures now at the dawn of their careers, and it will pay out 1,000-fold. So you're working on your game. You think it's a good start. It's important, but you're going to be in, many of you will be in the industry in 20 years. You also, even if you aren't in the industry, maybe you get into a different field, graphic design, writing, development, like maybe like graphics development. So you move into another industry. Well, this is still a record of what you've done and how it's affected people and how it's affected you. These are very culturally important. No matter the culture, no matter the person, no matter the group, these things matter. And that's because you matter. So let us save your stuff. Seriously, let us save it. We want to. And here's what we can do for you. What can we do for you at no charge? Unlimited cloud offsite storage, signed NDA to keep your assets private. We can talk about how we can, how long you want to put a cap on this. We're thinking in long terms of 15, 20, 30 plus years. And what you want to be able to get out there so people can analyze it, people can know the process and really understand not just video game history, but the video game development and creation process. So we can securely also store your objects and get them into a museum. I know a couple people at the Strong Museum of Play. Well, one, and a few other museums. These are cultural artifacts. If you do anything for me, stop thinking of them as just stuff you do. It's artifacts. It's important. It's expression. It's you, and we want to be able to give you voice. One I missed was preservation workflow for development. We can advise and give you the best way to preserve your code, your assets, your art assets, everything. And it isn't just keeping it on GitHub. GitHub has problems. It can go away. Something may happen to you, God forbid, and maybe you'll just drift off and forget about it. So we want to be able to have this in a preservation in a setting where it can be accessed at some point, and not just the cultural significance, but your story, your tales, your passion, your drive. We want to preserve that. We want to add the context for your games. So as I say, the last one is record and tell your story, and we want that. We want to interview your entire team. We want to talk to you about how you came to be. What your thought process was. So, if you think if that's cool to you, let's talk. My personal email is nbacon0@gmail.com. My US number is 1-949-288-3491. Call or text me whenever you need to or want to. My Discord is RetroWomper2684. Our Twitter is Gaming Alexandria. Too long, but Gaming Alexandria. And it was a pleasure being here. It was a pleasure to give you a short rundown of some of the aspects of preservation and why it matters, why you should care, and why we care. We really do, and we care because you're important. You are the painters, the artists of a medium which is brand new to the world, and not only you deserve to be venerated, you don't just deserve to have your stories told and remembered, but you deserve to have the context around what you do, and more, not to have what you've created, what you've spent so much time and energy and care, be lost. Groups disband, studios go bankrupt, people lose interest, friends float away. We want to be sure that we have a record of as much as possible. So, if you want to check out our articles or scans, go to gamingalexandria.com. Everything's free, everything's open. You can email us from there as well, preferably, personal email. But, we have a lot of ways you can contact us. So in any case, it was an honor to be able to present to you, even in these trying times. And I hope you're safe, I hope you're healthy, and I hope you're well, and I hope you put as much significance into video games as I do. And as a last note, you also may be thinking, you don't want someone with your secrets, someone out there. Well, like I said, we are an actual institute. We're going to be an actual institution, legally binding, and sometimes you have to trust. That's what I learned. I have to trust people to help out, to volunteer, to be passionate about things. And I think hopefully after hearing this presentation, you'll trust us, to do what's right with your assets, information, and apply our process to it, because we want to save what you create. In any case, I'm glad to give you this insight. Hope you learned something. Hope it's cool. Feel free to reach out to me, and take care, please, and have a good day.